Hello and welcome to the Post Point Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories, and with me I have
Matt Walker, reporter at the Puyallup Post.
Alright, and I don't know a lot about conspiracy theories, so Matt, you're going to have to take the lead on this one. What do you want to start off with? What? I say 9/11, that's like a big one.
9/11. So what do I believe, or what is a conspiracy theory?
What do you believe?
What do I believe?
Like, inside job? Did it just happen as like...
I don't think it happened the way they said. I don't want to get too much into my own beliefs relating to 9/11, but I will get into...
That's what this is about, though. Get into your own beliefs.
I'll get into the theory. So there's a number of theories. Some people think aliens crashed into it, into the Trade Center. I don't believe that. Some people think that it was an inside job. But I think, not what I think, but the main predominating theory is that there was... basically just things we weren't told related to it, and information that was withheld, and also that the way the buildings fell and the way that the steel beams melted, whatever, defied the laws of physics. So jet fuel can't melt steel beams, that's a fact, and it just doesn't burn hot enough. And then they were saying things like, oh, but what if it weakened the beams? And that makes sense and that's logical, but the fact remains that there was molten steel on site. So something melted the beams. And it wasn't the jet fuel. It wasn't the office equipment. So what was it? We don't know. But there was a number of inconsistencies. Also, not many people know this, but World Trade Center Building 7 also fell that day. A third building that wasn't hit by a plane. It fell. And it was tied in, and this goes back to our, being that I'm a reporter, a journalist, really what that means is I am a truth seeker. So I looked into all this information years ago and really got into it. I thought it was really fascinating, along with a number of other conspiracy theories. But anyways, so World Trade Center Building 7 and the other two, the Twin Towers, were all tied into an insurance policy that was recently opened up. So some people benefited from the fact that the buildings fell. And there was a number of other things. So Building 7 fell. It was I believe BBC reported that the building had fallen 20 minutes before it fell and collapsed in on itself, pancake fashion. And the most interesting thing was the reporter that was reporting on it said the World Trade Center Building 7 had also collapsed, and it was standing behind her when she said that. So I think that's one really weird incident that happened.
Do you think it was a controlled demolition, just kind of the way it fell?
Like I said, I'm not going to get into my own personal beliefs.
Come on, Matt, come on.
I'm not going to get into my own personal beliefs, but...
But do you think it, I guess... Personally, do you think it was just like a controlled demolition? Just kind of like, have you seen the video where it just
personally means my own belief, so I'm not gonna get into that. But
that's a yes.
I do think that there is some very significant evidence that points towards that, and
like the globalists set it up.
The globalists. That's a great question. I'm gonna spare the audience my own personal beliefs for the sake of this podcast and just get to the facts, because that's what really matters. But there was evidence of thermite being on scene. Thermite does and can melt steel beams, and thermite is a compound used in controlled demolition. And like I said, it was tons of evidence, everything from the black smoke to the molten steel to the angled cuts of the steel beams that were present on site. That is a tactic, and controlled demolition experts have seen these clips, seen the evidence, and said, like, this is exactly how we would have done it had we been attempting to take the building down. So I do think that there is significant evidence that something was going on relating to those buildings. You tie that into the people that made a ton of money from 9/11, tie that into the fact we went to war directly after, and then the Patriot Act, which was like a bill that it came out of an office desk the day of 9/11. It was already pre-written, pre-drafted, as if somebody had, obtained knowledge that something was going to happen that the rest of the public wasn't aware of. That came out of an office drawer, the Patriot Act, and that trampled on Americans' rights, and also set up the TSA as we know it. So, 9/11 was an interesting case. There's a lot of information relating to that I think solidifies the fact that there was something going on that we weren't told, and that some people know, and we may never know the truth. But I do think there's weird inconsistencies there. So what next? Next conspiracy theory.
Next conspiracy theory.
JFK.
Area 51.
Area 51.
Is there like? Do you think there's like
aliens?
Not aliens and just like other type of like.
I think
crazy things there.
So I think Area 51 is maybe once it was a site of significant secret technology and things like that. But I think at this point today, since it's so in the public, now it's just a distraction. They have, things that we would never know about, different Area 51s out there built into the side of mountains, things like that. So I think that Area 51 at this point isn't that significant. The government has other locations that they hide things. But I do think that Area 51 was mainly just a site at one point, for top secret military technology that we haven't been let in on, and yeah, pretty much that for Area 51. But as far as aliens go, I don't generally believe in aliens. I used to be big into the UFO phenomenon, but the more I look into it, the more it seemed to be kind of phony to me. And then recently, they've been almost hinting at disclosure of the UFO phenomenon and aliens and the truth. And I think whenever they start hinting at disclosure, then they got an agenda. There's something going on there. So I don't trust. Once it's funny because people believed in aliens once it was an outlandish thing to do. But then now that they're starting to come out and say that they have truth and there's stuff coming out, now I don't trust anymore. But yeah, I haven't believed in aliens for a number of years now. But
so you don't think that they've come here, or there's like no type of.
So I don't believe in extraterrestrial beings. I believe
at all, like ever in all of space. There's no other life form out there.
I don't believe so. No. So I think that there is other life forms, but they're not extraterrestrial, meaning from a different planet, but rather extra-dimensional beings from higher or lower dimensions. That's what I believe in, and that lines up with my my religious beliefs. I am a Christian. So I believe that when the Bible describes things like angels and demons, it's really describing extra-dimensional beings, and that's what I believe in. So ever since becoming a Christian several years ago, I stopped believing in aliens as we've been taught, what they are, and developed a new kind of cosmology and belief in what aliens really are.
So question.
Yes.
With our planet, and do you believe kind of like the universe is infinite then?
No, I think our universe, the third dimension, is finite. But I do believe that, once again, that there are different dimensions. So we're just living in this small little dimension, right? That's built for us. So I believe humanity is a great thing and a great creation. So I frown upon the anti-human people that are like, we need to lower the Earth's population. And then it was I forgot who it was, Plato, pretty sure ancient philosopher, that said that humans, I think it was Plato, it could have been a different one. There's some things I like about Plato, there's some things I don't. But this is one thing I didn't like, if it was him, if I'm remembering correctly. He said that humans, this is when the Earth's population was 200 or 300,000 people, that humans were on the verge of crushing the breast of Mother Earth, or whatever. And that was when we were 300,000. Now we're 7 billion now. And I think that we're just being sold the same lie and being trained or indoctrinated into believing that we're the problem. And then this also expands into all the pop culture, into Hollywood movies. I just watched Godzilla, King of the Monsters, the new Godzilla. And they have some messages in there that I thought were interesting. But the main female character, I can't remember her actual character's name at the moment, but she was the one that sided with the people that were anti-human, that wanted to destroy humanity, using King Ghidorah in this instance to do so. But then there was the other side that wanted Godzilla to defeat, King Ghidorah, and there was a ton of biblical messages in there which I thought were interesting. But anyways, so there is anti-humanists. I frown upon them. I think humanity is a great thing. I think that we have, a lot of flaws. And I think that we've done a lot of evil things, but we've also done a lot of good things and come a long way. And in the case of America, we built, the nation that has empowered more humans, more people than anywhere else in history. So I think that we need to have a more hopeful outlook on the future and stop arguing about climate change, stop trying to ban meat, which a lot of the people on the left are trying to ban meat to save the planet. And then they're also trying to, end air travel, which just is unfeasible. That's the Green New Deal. End air travel, ban carbon-emitting cars, rebuild all our buildings so that they're non-carbon emitting and efficient, all these different things, which would cost trillions of dollars. Doesn't make sense. So I think that we need to have a more hopeful outlook that climate change, is just a natural phenomenon, which I believe it was, because if you look at, I forgot I think it was called the Vostok, or it was ice samples from Greenland that they took that were like hundreds of thousands of years old or tens of thousands of years old. They found that the carbon that existed during this time period was significantly higher than the carbon we have in the atmosphere. And the Earth was teeming with life because plants and humans and animals, everything requires carbon in order to survive. So carbon, they turn into this big enemy, when in fact carbon's actually something that every time you inhale and exhale, you're exhaling carbon. So they're trying to make you the enemy by blaming carbon and whatnot. So I think it's just an agenda.
Is Mark Zuckerberg a lizard?
Is Mark Zuckerberg a lizard? No.
Do you believe in lizard people?
Do I believe in lizard people? What they call reptilians? No, I do not. I don't think I ever did. I thought it was bogus. There's so much stuff on the internet. There's rabbit holes I've jumped down, being that I am a truth seeker, a journalist. You could jump down these conspiracy theory rabbit holes all the way into, there's aliens living underneath the Capitol and all these different bogus. But there is an element of truth within these things. And I think the biggest thing you can take away from conspiracy theories is that people don't trust what they've been told anymore. And I think that is a consequence, going back to fake news, a consequence of fake news, and also a consequence of something called the internet, which our parents didn't grow up with. So our parents had cable news. My sister, for example, was a millennial. She had MTV and cable news, those things. So she went a little bit further to the left for a while, because that's the direction that cable news was going. But then they say that Gen Z, which is my generation, I'm on the very brink. I'm like a couple months from being considered a millennial, but I'm on the very brink. So I'm Gen Z. They say Gen Z is the most conservative generation in history. And I believe that's large and in part due to the development of the internet. Because now we have the tool to go do our own research, and the tool that breaks us free from the mainstream media machine, indoctrination, cable news programming machine. So we have the internet, so we just generally are more free thinkers, Gen Z.
What about 5G?
5G, all right.
This is a big one.
More of my stuff right
5G.
here. 5G. So I think, and this is one actually thing I didn't bring up in the fake news podcast that I really have a strong disagreement with Trump on, because Trump supports 5G. And I disagree with Trump because I think 5G, and even 4G, like our current smartphones run on 4G, is dangerous. And there's a lot of health concerns related to it. But 5G, they're saying, is 100 times more powerful than 4G. So 4G has already been shown to do almost exactly what a microwave does to your food. It vibrates particles, your molecules together, and what this does is it basically grows tumors, grows cancer, all these different things. So 5G, being that it's 100 times more powerful, but also that it requires significantly more towers and whatnot to function, you're going to have 5G towers in your neighborhood. So that's the thing, is you're going to have 5G towers, so you're not going to be able to escape the negative health effects. I'm sure we get like a low dose of radiation from our phones as is, but 5G is just going to 100 times, is going to increase that 100-fold. So you're going to be constantly dosed with radiation, and that's not going to be good. And we've already seen, and I attribute the rising increase in mental illness like anxiety, depression, which we know, I'm sure everyone that's watching this podcast knows somebody or is suffering from these different mental illnesses. I attribute that mainly to the smartphone, because when I was younger, I never had any mental health issues. I was always very confident, always all these things. But then you get the smartphone, you're sucked into a virtual world, and then you compare yourself to the Instagram models or whatever, this and that. Their life looks so fun, and then you think to yourself, well, why is my life not like that? Things like that. So people are always comparing themselves. And then you combine that kind of thinking with 4G and 5G doing what it does to your body, and then you start to ask, there's rising cancer, rising depression, and rising anxiety. Why is that? It's because these things aren't natural. So they're doing things to you that are increasing all this. So all this comes back to 5G, and I believe that 5G, we're going to see increase in all these mental illnesses, even more so. And we also know that the suicide rate is one of the biggest killer of young people today. I think it is the biggest killer, or it's like top 3. But so I think that we need to really look into 5G and figure out, how to make it, first of all, how dangerous it is, and we need to have serious studies on that before we just throw it out and start building a huge infrastructure that runs on it. We need to make it safe first and figure out what the dangers are and the health effects, and not make the same mistake we made with 4G. So that is one thing I do very much disagree with Trump on, and I hope that he sees this broadcast. Most likely not, but at least I hope that he listens to his supporters that I do think largely disagree with him on the matter of 5G.
Do you think the dangers of 5G is a benefit to some people to make the population weaker?
You mean the globalists?
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into my beliefs.
Okay. Moon landing. I
believe we did land on the moon.
But there's a lot of fake stuff out there.
Absolutely.
NASA put some you ever see the picture of that one dude that looks like he's in space, but it's really not? It's just like they blacked out the background to make it look like it.
Mm-hmm. I think that we did go to the moon, but I think that it didn't happen exactly the way they tell us. I think that they probably had a backup plan in the case that something happened to the astronauts going to the moon, because this was a national, as we know, space race, or what do they call it? The arms race or whatever, the nuclear arms race. And then we had the space race with Russia, the Soviet Union at the time. And I think that were we to fail in the spotlight, that would make us look weak. And if Russia succeeded, then that would make us, look, weak and like we were behind them. So they had to have backup plans. So I think that what we saw, the footage we saw, likely was faked, whereas the astronauts really did go there and did successfully land on the moon. But as far as the moon landing goes, I think that we did land on the moon, but I just don't know if we were told the absolute truth relating to it.
Are polls rigged?
Polls rigged? Absolutely, polls are rigged. And
Hillary should have won, right?
They said Hillary Clinton had I want to say they said all the way up to 99% chance, but from what I recall, 95% chance to win. And the polls, the fake news pushed the fake polls, and this was all the media. And then when it actually got to the day of and she lost, then they all had to, their credibility was basically destroyed with all those fake polls. So they had to, walk that back. And then they started blaming the Electoral College for all these things. But the Electoral College, as I stated in the Fake News podcast, if you haven't watched that, make sure to give that a listen. Me and great reporter named McKenna had a discussion on fake news. And anyways, so they had to walk that all back. And then they blamed the Electoral College, and now they're still blaming it. Should we abolish the Electoral College? Unfortunately for them, for those people that want it to be a popular vote decision, that's not going to happen because it just takes way too much. I was actually just learning about it in history, what it would take for that to happen, for them to actually get rid of the Electoral College. And it takes, I think, what was it? It was like 2/3. There's like 13 states, smaller states, that would have to be convinced too. And the smaller states aren't going to give up their power. Their political power to elect the president, just so then these elite coastal cities like Chicago, New York, LA could then, dominate every race. And that's the thing is the reason the founders put in the Electoral College is because they knew that pure democracy never ends well, and pure democracy is a tyranny of the majority, so the 51% would rule over the 49% in that case. So that's still a tyranny. So the Electoral College offsets that and gives the power to the people, but also to the states. so that there is a more just way that the president is put into office, and how it all happens is more fair. So that way, Chicago, New York, and LA, these elite coastal cities with huge populations, don't determine the fate of 90% of the country. In the case of the Trump election, that's what happened. 90 to 96% of the counties were red. So, but the popular vote was decided to be blue. So that makes sure that these, flyover country and the forgotten Americans, that are just, in all these, different countries, all these places that aren't industrialized cities, still have a voice.
Alrighty, and thank you for watching this week's video. If you like this, like the video. If you're interested in talking about more conspiracy theories, maybe incorporating your own opinions.
If you see me in the hallways, I'll tell you my opinions, and we'll get further into it. My name is Matt Walker. I walk around Pierce College quite a lot. A lot of times I wear this because I have 2 jobs, so I got to make sure I'm looking good and meeting the dress code at the second job. So stop me. We'll have a discussion about conspiracies.